morning. This is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. PsychicTarot.ca, book your tarot reading and unlock your spiritual journey. And the Pepper Master, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind.
Well, good morning and hello, kids and cubs, and welcome to Season 5 and episode number 847 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. Oh, Canada, always 100% Canadian. Today, recording day is Wednesday, February 11th, 2026, and it is a lovely day here at the Vacation Beaver Lodge in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. Hola! I am your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver A, and not with me as usual is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly. A big thank you goes to our podcast founding sponsors, the Pepper Master, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and PsychicTarot.ca. Kids and Cubs, how is your mental health today? Mine doing okay. Got a decent night's sleep yesterday, which was good because yesterday I was pretty tired, actually, falling asleep all the time. I almost didn't make it up for dinner, actually. Stretched out on the bed, and Beaver Sweetie was asking me around 8:30, do you just want to go to bed without supper? It's like half of me was saying yes, but then the other half of me said, if I do that, I'm going to wake up this morning pretty famished. So might see him there a little bit in the background there. He's enjoying his breakfast. If you want to wait for that, there you go. You only see half of them. There you go. But yeah, mental health doing pretty well, especially considering the terrible news. Unfortunately, this is normally, we don't cover this type of thing because we try to stick to politics and general culture, not necessarily crime, just sort of a daily events in that sense. But however, in Canada yesterday, there was a very tragic event and something that is relatively rare for our nation, which was a mass shooting that took place in Tumbler Ridge, British Columbia. And the impacts of that are being felt from coast to coast to coast, but also around the world, because you hate to say it this way, but there are certain nations on the planet where you are not surprised anymore that these things happen. You're still shocked, but not surprised. But in Canada, these things are always both shocking and surprising. According to CBC, just some couple of notes here. 9 people were killed and at least 25 more were injured after a mass shooting in the community of Tumbler Ridge, British Columbia on Tuesday. Officers believe that they have identified the shooter, who was found dead in the school but said they will, quote, struggle to ever determine a motive for what has become one of the deadliest shootings in Canadian history. A grade 12 student at the school says he and his classmates were locked down for more than 2 hours behind barricaded doors before police escorted them outside. Prime Minister Mark Carney says that all flags on federal government buildings across the country will be flown at half-mast. Question period has been cancelled for today. That's probably a very good thing because, unfortunately, we have a leader of the opposition who we can't trust to not try to milk this personal tragedy, to try to put himself at the center of it somehow. Because that's typically what he does when things like this happen. Provincial and world leaders, including King Charles, have expressed solidarity with Canadians and the BC community. As of 4 hours ago, there was a recap from CBC of what we know so far. At about 1:20 p.m. local time in British Columbia, an alert was issued to residents of Tumbler Ridge and the surrounding area about reports of an active shooter in the community. Residents were locked down until the alert was officially cancelled at 5:45 p.m. RCMP say 6 victims were killed at Tumbler Ridge Secondary School. A 7th victim died on the way to the hospital. 2 more were found dead in a residence, which police say was connected to the school shooting, for a total of 10 dead, including the suspect who died of a self-inflicted injury. Police say they believe they have identified the shooter, but have not yet released more information about who they were. They have also not released details about the victims' identities, including their age, citing privacy and a need to confirm and notify family first, as is standard practice in British Columbia. 25 more were injured, but we don't know their status, the extent of their injuries, or where they are being treated. BC Emergency Health Services, which provides ambulance services in the province, says they airlifted 2 people to hospital, 1 in critical condition and 1 in serious but stable condition. That's a quote. Paramedics treated others at scene, quote, who did not require hospital transport, the health services also said. And that is with files from Canadian press. According to Peter Zamunich of CBC, of course, reporting that the House won't sit today because the Greens and the NDP no longer have party status. The MPs would have to agree to let a representative from the NDP and Green leaders and the Green parties make statements in the House. When that is done, the House would adjourn for the day. 30 minutes ago, according to Jenna Benchetrit from also CBC, there's an indication that police have a decent theory, according to the police chief. Cash Heed, who's the former BC Solicitor General and former Chief of Police in West Vancouver, said it's very important that police, quote, strike a balance when divulging information about the ongoing investigation. Quote, I listened to the news conference by the superintendent and it's very precarious here on what information you can give out, he explained. By now, law enforcement will have, quote, a decent theory on what might have happened during the shooting. Quote, they would have identified who the actual suspect was in this tragic incident. They would have identified certainly the address of where the 2 people were found deceased, he said, referencing to the secondary crime scene that police believe is connected to the shooting. Police don't need to give out intimate details of the investigation, but he said they should give the appropriate amount of information to keep the public calm. MPs from all parties were in the foyer of House of Commons this morning reacting to the shooting. And according to NDP interim leader Don Davies, quote, it strikes me that as we gather here today to mark a National Kindness Week, there's a cruel irony to that, but also perhaps a proud symmetry as we gather across party lines to focus on the opposite of what happened yesterday, which is coming together in humanity and kindness. Green leader Elizabeth May said, quote, it was as if BC Premier David Eby was reading her mind when he said, you read these things and you think they happen somewhere else. They don't happen here. May praised the work of the first responders and said their community and the country will need to stand behind them as they struggle with what they saw when they arrived at Tumbler Ridge Secondary School. Quote, it's unspeakable. It's a terrible tragedy and warn those who've lost so much. Liberal government House Leader Stephen McKinnon had planned that there would be a moment of silence after question period today, but question period was cancelled. So I do not know if they did the moment of silence earlier this morning or if they will do it when question period resumes tomorrow. François-Philippe Champagne, who's the finance minister, was asked to weigh in on other parliamentary matters, but also said, quote, "The whole country is mourning today. We have great tragedy in our country. That's really what's top of mind for all Canadians. We don't see these things in our country," he said. Some premiers shared some reactions. New Yukon Premier Curry Dixon said people in the territory are thinking of their friends and neighbors in British Columbia as they, quote, "grapple with this tragedy," calling the deadly incident heartbreaking. Nova Scotia Premier Tim Houston said his thoughts were with the families, survivors, and entire community in the wake of the horrific attack. New Brunswick Premier Susan Holt said that her, quote, "heart breaks for the families, friends, and entire community, and that the province's thoughts go to those grieving this unimaginable loss." Newfoundland and Labrador Premier Tony Wakeham said he was, quote, "deeply saddened by the tragic and heartbreaking events in Tumbler Ridge." Wakeham said he sent out his sincere condolences to those affected by this senseless act of violence. I'm sure more premiers have had some comments since then. This is just a sampling here. Larry Newfield, who represents Tumbler Ridge provincially as the MLA for Peace River South, was on his way to Tumbler Ridge as of about an hour ago and spoke to CBC while pulled over in his vehicle. Like others, he mentioned how tight-knit Tumbler Ridge, with everyone personally impacted by this tragedy, including him. So he said, "This has damaged me as a human being. There's not a word in the English language that's strong enough to describe the level of devastation that this community has experienced. It is tearing at the fabric, if not torn the fabric of this community." Newfield said he doesn't want to take part in speculation and rumors about the identity of the victims or subject or what led to yesterday's tragedy. I would leave that to the RCMP. They're very capable. It's probably another reason that it's probably a good idea that question period is cancelled because, again, we know that we have a leader of the opposition that loves to fill in the blanks with that which he needs /wants /hopes to be true in order for his narrative to fit. We saw that with the incident with the car crash in Buffalo. And our leader of the opposition was the first to run to the mic based on one report from Fox News and claimed for sure that it was terrorism and somehow Justin Trudeau's fault. Turns out it wasn't. It was neither. So probably a good idea to give this particular person not as much platform as he probably would like. It will be interesting to see how the Conservative Party handles this, because they usually have an MO when things like this happen. Hopefully, they will not live down to expectations today. Hopefully. Yeah, not a good day. Not a good day. Of course, there's probably some commentary here. I'm just looking for some more stories here because I know I saw something that had the Prime Minister making a comment. However, it seems that I miscopied the link, so I'm going to have to go and take a look at that here at some point. Just if you hold on with me, bear with me for a second here. I need to go and find it. I'm sorry. I did not have this to make this seamless here. But here I have it right now. According to CBC News, and this is from, just waiting for the article to load here, from John Paul Tasker. Prime Minister Mark Carney said the country is in mourning after a tragic shooting in Tumbler Ridge, BC, left 9 dead and more than 25 injured in one of the worst mass killings in Canadian history. Quote, "It's a very difficult day for the nation," Carney told reporters on Parliament Hill as tears filled his eyes. "Parents, grandparents, sisters, and brothers in Tumbler Ridge will wake up without someone they love. The nation mourns with you. Canada stands with you." Carney said Public Safety Minister Gary Anandansangri was en route to British Columbia to help coordinate the federal response to the mass shooting Tuesday in the small town in the northeastern foothills of the Rocky Mountains. Quote, All assistance will be offered, Carney said, while thanking first responders, school staff, and community members, quote, for everything they've done in this terrible situation. The RCMP hasn't released more information about who they believe is the shooter. Law enforcement have also not released details about the victims' identities, including their age, citing privacy need to confirm and notify family first, as is standard practice in British Columbia. We stated this here. Of course, the flags will be at half-mast, as already stated. Quote, we will get through this. We will learn from this. But right now, it's a time to come together, as Canadians always do in these terrible situations. Carney said King Charles personally reached out to offer condolences. World leaders from the UK, France, Norway, Finland, India, and the United Arab Emirates, among others, contacted him directly, expressing, quote, solidarity and compassion, he said. Carney and other leaders are due to make a statement in the House of, we're due to make a statement in the House of Commons at 2 p.m. And then the MPs will adjourn for the day. The Prime Minister cancelled other planned events on schedule, including an announcement in Halifax on Canada's security and defense. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre called the shooting, quote, appalling. Quote, the fact that this took place at a secondary school makes it even more tragic. As a father, I can't even imagine the phone calls the parents might have received. I can't imagine the heartache and the hell they're living through at this moment. I encourage all Canadians to pray for the community and pray for the family, he said. I hoped that that was the extent of his comments on the day. What people need the most isn't sharper rhetoric, but more kindness and humanity, interim leader of the NDP, Don Davies, said. Conservative MP Bob Zimmer, who represents the community in Parliament, said in an interview with CBC News that what has unfolded, quote, is absolutely devastating. Zimmer said he's going back to the riding to be with his constituents. Quote, I just want to hear from the people of Tumbler Ridge, he said. Pray for them. BC Liberal MP Stephen Fuhr said what's transpired is, quote, a massive tragedy and the aftermath will be tough for the 2,400 residents of Tumbler Ridge. Quote, it's a very small community. It will be difficult. What do you lean on when your entire community is affected by a tragedy of this magnitude, Fuhr said. I'm pretty shaken by it. It's a massive deal. It's not too far from my home riding of Kelowna. While mass killings like this are rare in Canada, this is the second deadly incident in BC in less than a year after a car was driven into a crowd last April during Vancouver's Lapu Day festival. And like I said, we don't know much more about this. I've also heard, but was looking for additional confirmation that the Prime Minister was to attend the Munich Security Conference and has decided in light of these events to remain at home. I do not know if that is a one-day conference or multi-day conference. I do not know if he will be going later, if he has indeed cancelled his scheduled, I wouldn't say appearance, but attendance there. But I'm sure we will be getting more details on this as the hours and days go by. I don't know about you, but I really don't know what to say in instances like these. I mean, right? It's all the words of the standard things that we know, right? It's a horrible tragedy. It's unspeakable. It's devastating. Of course, people send their sympathies and condolences. Of course, people pray for the families and all those who loved and cared for those who are impacted. But in these situations, while thoughts and prayers can provide some comfort, it's cold comfort. Thoughts and prayers are never sufficient. In cases like these, there certainly are not sufficient as the only tool or the only method to address things of the such. But yeah, I really don't know what to say. I'm sorry, kids and cubs. I do not know if you are picking up some ambient conversation. If that is the case, there are people in the hallway just outside who have decided to have a lengthy conversation there. at the moment, not seeming to realize that there may be people in other units that may be disturbing. So I'm sorry if you're hearing a lot of ambient noise. It's actually really loud where I am, and I'm actually having difficulty concentrating, which is one of the reasons that I'm speaking slowly, so that I can make sure that I'm gathering my thoughts and not tripping over my tongue. So I apologize if there's any ambient noise coming and through the speaker there. So yeah, that is what's going on at the moment. Of course, it is good that as a nation, we are taking the time. We are leaving space for this to be the only story, because the last thing we need is to just have this happen and decide, and now move on to other things, which is, and I'm saying this with a certain degree of irony, because on the show, we are going to have to do that, because there isn't enough information out there to actually do a lengthy show on this. This is about all we have at the time. I mean, I guess I could have just decided as well that, given that that's all we have for today, and just not do more. I'm kind of torn, actually, as to whether or not I should do that, follow that lead. But yeah, it's it's hard not to be shaken by such things, particularly since, like I said, it's not that this doesn't happen here, right? People say, this doesn't happen here. No, it does. It's just not frequent or commonplace. So when it does, we're shocked. I mean, we had the events in Atlanta, Canada. Whoops, lost connection for a little bit there. Of course, then there was we had the mosque shooting in Québec City a few years ago. Polytechnic, right? Dawson College. These are not. We're not immune from such events. We're not immune. They do happen here. But yeah, it throws us. It throws us for a loop, because we're not used to it. It's not part of the fabric of our culture here in Canada. So yeah, it's here. It's not odd that things would stop when events such as this happen. It's not odd at all. But yeah, again, words are my life, and words don't usually fail me, but here words fail me, because I am, as much as I can imagine or try to imagine what people must be going through, I can't really. Fortunately, touch wood, this is something I have never had to experience. Kit Linda, yes, I believe this is Kit Linda, who said here, hopefully I can put it up there on the screen, I hope we never stop feeling shaken when something like this happens, that we never get used to it. I hope so too. I hope so too, because when we get used to it, we start accepting it as just the basic cost of our democracy or our society, and we shouldn't do that. Kid Saucy here. The issue is prevention. Why are people wanting to target individuals this way? How do we see the signs and prevent it from becoming a tragedy? Indeed. These are good questions. I don't have the answers at all, Kid Linda here. People have been asking that for decades. We still don't have an answer. We don't. Again, we can imagine, we can theorize, but we don't know. We don't know. And like I said, in this case, even the police already are stating that we may not at all, in this particular case, know what the motive is. It's just horror. It's just outright horror. And the news doesn't get better, because if that news wasn't bad enough, in the province of Québec, there is another shooting on a First Nation, Kitigan-Zibi, according to CB News. A man, 2 children are dead after a murder-suicide there on that First Nation. A man shot and killed his 2 children before taking his own life in Kitigan-Zibi, Anishinaabe, early Wednesday, Quebec provincial police have confirmed. Quote, at this stage of the investigation, we can confirm that a 41-year-old father killed his 2 children aged 10 and 12 before committing suicide. A firearm was used. The investigation is continuing, said Sûreté du Québec Sergeant Nancy Fournier in an interview Wednesday morning. Provincial and community police said they were called to a home on Kichimikan in the Western Quebec Algonquin First Nation around 2:05 a.m. Kitigan-Zibi's police director Paul McDougall said police found the man and his 2 children with serious injuries. 1 person was pronounced dead at the scene, and 2 others were taken to the hospital and later died, according to the Sûreté du Québec. Provincial police are assisting in the investigation. About 1,200 people were living in Kitigan-Zibi as of the 2021 census. The community is just south of Maniwaki, Quebec, about 100 kilometers north of Ottawa-Gatineau. Quebec Premier François Legault and First Nations Relations Minister Ian Lafrenière offered their support to the community on social media, with Legault saying in French he's deeply shaken by what happened. Federal Transport Minister Stephen McKinnon, the MP for Gatineau, spoke to reporters about the incident on Parliament Hill Wednesday morning. Quote, my thoughts go out to the chief and all the members of the community, McKinnon said. To lose 2 children is just an unbelievable thing. And of course, with this, comes the usual thing that happens, is to give out information in case you or someone you know is struggling as to where to look for help. Canada's Suicide Crisis Helpline is available. You can call or text 988. There's Kids Help Phone at 1-800-668-6868, or you can text 686868. And there's live chat counseling on their website. There's the Canadian Association for Suicide Prevention. You can search by province or territory for suicide crisis services, suicide bereavement, and mental health support. And there is a guide you can find online for the Center for Addiction and Mental Health that outlines how to talk about suicide with someone you're worried about. So, get some cubs. Yeah, I just want to get that information out there in case you or anybody you know needs it. And if you do happen to be in that situation, although you may not be feeling it right now, um, there is always, 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 always hope. And there is always a kind person that maybe you haven't met yet that would be willing to offer genuine help. So please, in that moment, make the choice to stay. Make the choice to stay. Oh my God. Sorry. Oh my God. Okay. Uh, and now for the world's worst segue. I'm sorry. I need a moment. Wow. I did not think that would happen today. Okay. 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 Uh, oh. Yeah. Um, I I guess I'm a little tired, so I'm a little over emotional. Uh, Sorry. This is very unprofessional. So, uh, okay. All right. Uh, let's see if we can deal with some other stories. Where's Beaver Sweetie? We need a hug. Beaver Sweetie is in the shower at the moment. uh, and now, unfortunately, I am congested, and so my voice may sound a little funny, but that's okay. We will push. Thank you, Kid Saucy. You are human. That is professional. Yes, damn fam. I know you understand because clearly this is not the first time in this venture where I've had tears with certain stories. Sometimes they hit. Uh, sometimes they just hit. They just hit different, or they hit harder. Uh, However, the way you have fruit layered on the counter like that is not professional. Yes, we went to the market and brought home a bounty. So, but yes, indeed. Thank you for the bit of humor to help pull me out. That's very helpful. Thank you, Dan. You are wonderful as always. Wonderful as always. All right. Uh, so let's see if we can gracefully move on to another subject. Um, as you know, yesterday. Uh, yes, so the tea towel is askew. You noticed everything, don't you? Oh man, wow. Okay. Um, as you know, recently, the President of the United States, needing some reason to make Canada the bad guy once again, decided that he was going to threaten the opening of the Gordie Howe Bridge. And of course, he was factually incorrect about pretty much everything he said. And fortunately, Canada's national fact checker who happens to be working for CNN in the United States, Daniel Dale, had a few things to say in order to correct the record. So I figured, given he's a good Canadian boy, we would highlight his work here. President Donald Trump threatened in a Monday social media post to block the opening of a major new U.S.-Canada bridge over the Detroit River. But Trump's post about the Gordie Howe International Bridge included misleading claims and important omissions, even if you ignore his laughable claim that, quote, if Prime Minister Mark Carney makes a trade deal with China, quote, the first thing China will do is terminate all ice hockey being played in Canada and permanently eliminate the Stanley Cup. Here's a fact check of Trump's assertions in the post. Perhaps coincidentally, some of them are similar to claims previously made by the family that owns a nearly century-old toll bridge over the same river that has fought for years to stop the opening of the new bridge, including in 2018 by running an ad on Fox News morning show Trump was known to watch. First of all, after delivering a series of criticisms of the Gordie Howe Bridge connecting Detroit and Windsor, Ontario, which has been expected to open early this year, Trump wrote in the Monday Post, quote, now the Canadian government expects me as President of the United States to permit them to just take advantage of America. If Canada expected him to support the bridge now, that might be because he already endorsed it. Trump didn't mention in the Monday Post that in February 2017, early in his first presidency, he issued a joint statement with then Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, in which they said, given our shared focus on infrastructure investments, we will encourage opportunities for companies in both countries to create jobs through those investments. In particular, we look forward to the expeditious completion of the Gordie Howe International Bridge, which will serve as a vital economic link between our two countries. Jeff Watson, who represented part of the Windsor area as a Conservative MP on Parliament Hill from 2004 to 2015, said in a message to CNN on Tuesday, the absurdity is Trump 1.0 takes no issue with the arrangement, wants the construction expedited, while Trump 2.0 now wants to use it as leverage in a trade war he started. There's a reason for that. We'll get to that. Trump wrote, with all that we have given them, we should own perhaps at least one half of this asset. But the ownership of the bridge is already split between the state of Michigan and Canada, as government documents show. Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer's office and Windsor Mayor Drew Dilkins confirmed to CNN on Tuesday. Carney told reporters, and Republican former Michigan Governor Rick Snyder wrote in a Tuesday op-ed. And this op-ed we will bring to you a little later because it provides some important context, and that it comes from the former Michigan governor, that it comes from the other side of the border, actually does matter. Snyder, writing in the Detroit News, quoted Trump's musing about how we should own perhaps at least one half of the asset, then responded, we do already. He wrote, Canada and the state of Michigan are 50-50 owners of the new bridge. Now, at this point, I would probably point out that if Mark Carney were as petty as Donald Trump, he would have delivered some type of statement stating that the United States gets lots of freebies from Canada, and they're not very grateful. They should really be grateful. And Donald, you should probably watch your statements. But we're not petty. Well, I am. Prime Minister is not, apparently. Trump wrote, quote, well, anyway, we know what he said. We read it yesterday, so blah, blah, blah. But he said, I will not allow this bridge to open until the United States is fully compensated for everything we have given them, blah, blah, blah. Treat Canada with fairness and respect we deserve, blah, 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 when he doesn't offer any. He didn't make it clear whether he was demanding compensation over the bridge project over some other unspecified thing, what we have given them, but given that he didn't specify, it's worth explaining that Canada paid the entire multi-billion-dollar cost of constructing the bridge after Michigan state lawmakers balked at contributing. Also, because the people who owned the other bridge didn't want there to be a new bridge, because that would be competition. And apparently, in a capitalist society like the United States, the capitalist thing to do is to insist that there be no competition. Okay. Canada plans to recover its costs through revenue from tolls. After it is repaid, subsequent toll revenue will be split between Canada and Michigan. Trump wrote in his post that Canada built the bridge, quote, with virtually no U.S. content, adding President Barack Hussein, of course, he has slipped the Hussein in there, Obama stupidly gave them a waiver so that they could get around the Buy American Act and not use any American products, including our steel. The Obama administration said in 2012 that it was supporting the Buy American waiver to allow the use of Canadian iron and steel so long as American iron and steel is allowed to compete on an equal basis, out of a basic notion of fairness, because the project was a unique circumstance under which Canada is assuming all financial liability and risk for the construction. Yeah, it kind of mattered, didn't it? Bloomberg reported in 2018 that the steel would primarily be sourced from Canada, but there's no apparent basis for a claim that American steel was completely excluded. Snyder, Carney, Dilkins, and Ontario Premier Doug Ford all say Tuesday that U.S. steel was indeed used. Dilkins wrote on social media platform Jitter, thousands of U.S. workers helped construct the bridge, port of entry, and Michigan connections on the U.S. side, where lots of U.S. steel was used. He added in an email to CNN. U.S. steel was specifically used for construction of the Michigan side of the river and for the U.S. port of entry customs facility. Snyder similarly wrote in his op-ed that Trump's claim is, quote, incorrect, since, quote, the U.S. Customs Plaza and the Michigan side approach to work have been built with U.S. materials and workers, just as the Canadian equivalents have been built with Canadian resources. Carney told reporters that he explained to Trump in a call on Tuesday that, quote, in the construction of the bridge, obviously there's Canadian steel, Canadian workers, but also U.S. steel, U.S. workers that were involved. And Ford told reporters, quote, 75% yes were Canadian steel and concrete because we're paying for it. 25% was U.S. steel and concrete. Then the interchange going on from the Michigan side, it was all American workers, all American steel, all American concrete. So again, there's fiction, what President Trump says, and then there's true facts that people can look up. Okay. According to Rick Snyder, again, the former governor, and this is from the Detroit News. He writes, last night, my wife and I had a quiet evening watching Olympics highlights, including some incredible Michigan skaters. The quiet was quickly shattered by President Donald Trump's announcement that he might stop the opening of the Gordie Howe International Bridge. Since I played a significant role in the bridge project, my phone and my email have been flooded with media inquiries. I have generally kept a low profile over the past few years, but this topic merits a few comments. Most responses to the president's comments have been in favor of the Gordie Howe International Bridge, asking him not to stop the opening. These statements are well thought out and on point. Instead of a similar statement, let me take a nerdier approach and analyze the key underlying points in this Truth Social post and important historical background. In Trump's Truth Social post, he says, they, Canada, own both the Canada and U.S. state sides. This is incorrect. It's also legally impossible. Canada and the state of Michigan are 50-50 owners of the new bridge. Canada was wonderful and financed the entire bridge. They will get repaid with interest from the tolls. Michigan and the United States got their half ownership with no investment. That is a great deal, especially since it is the bridge is expected to reduce the amount of time it takes to process products being traded back and forth. Assuming, but of course, the United States doesn't particularly, well, according to Trump, claims we don't have anything we need, so maybe, right? That's not as relevant now, but it was very much relevant when we made the deal. It was built with virtually no U.S. content. This is incorrect. There was a waiver of the Buy America Act for the actual bridge part of the construction project. Why? Because half the bridge is in Canada. Buy American should not apply to a project that is half outside the country. The workers and materials for the bridge construction have come from both countries. The U.S. Customs Plaza and the Michigan side approach to work have been built with U.S. materials and workers, just as the Canadian equivalents have been built with Canadian resources. China will terminate all ice hockey in Canada and eliminate the Stanley Cup. This is very doubtful. In fact, there's a big game tonight between the U.S. and Canada's women's teams. I believe hockey will continue to thrive in both countries, and there's no better name than the Gordie Howe International Bridge for this project. And unfortunately, Canadian women lost 5-0 to the U.S. in that game. Marie-Philippe Poulin, of course, Captain Clutch, was not playing in that one, recovering from some injuries. I believe it is to the knee and ankle. Hopefully, it's just a matter of rest, and that she will be able to join the lineup again. Probably a good idea to rest her now while we are doing pool play. This is the 7th match in a row that the Canadian women's team have won against Team Canada. So, the tariffs Canada charges for our dairy products have for many years been acceptable, putting our farmers at great financial risk. This is a legitimate concern. It has been a problem since before I was governor, and it should be addressed by federal representatives from both countries. Of course, we need to put the caveat that this actually is not a legitimate concern. The tariffs on dairy farmers, especially the ones that are particularly high, only kick in once the United States have surpassed a certain quota, and the United States has never, ever remotely come even close to meeting that amount. So it's something that exists in theory, but has never been enacted in practice. It has been a problem since before I was, we, the US, should own perhaps at least one half of this asset. Quote, we do already, with an exclamation mark. There are a few other items to note. You may wonder who loses if the Gordie Howe International Bridge is delayed or stopped. Quote, obviously Canada, they have a huge investment in the bridge. US and Canadian companies, the Ambassador Bridge has hindered commerce for decades and increased the costs for manufacturing operations. The Gordie Howe International Bridge will solve these problems and provide for faster economic growth on both sides. US and Canadian workers, the Gordie Howe International Bridge will create new jobs in logistics and other areas on both sides. And US and Canadian consumers, the added costs of suffering due to the Ambassador Bridge issues are added to the cost of our goods and services. For each of these last points, given the size of each country's economy, the negative impacts of a bridge delay are felt much more on the US side. Overall, US citizens would be the largest losers in a bridge delay or stoppage. If the Gordie Howe International Bridge is delayed or stopped, there actually is one big winner, the Maroon family and the Ambassador Bridge Company. Over the decades, they have spent millions trying to stop the Gordie Howe International Bridge. Why? Every day, they make much more money at our expense. In 2012 alone, they spent more than $30 million on a ballot proposal to prevent construction of the Gordie Howe International Bridge. For years, they have had active lobbyists in Lansing and Washington trying to sabotage this project. They have also made very large political contributions in both places. President Trump, I would encourage you to challenge your advisors and the sources for your post to correct the information they have provided. The Gordie Howe International Bridge is a great deal for America that I hope you will be proud of. We have some issues with Canada that should be negotiated, but picking this bridge as the leverage point doesn't seem to make the most sense given your other tools. The bridge stoppage approach would primarily harm Americans. To my friends in Canada, thank you for financing the Gordie Howe International Bridge and for many other areas of friendship. Canada has been a stalwart partner on this massive project through multiple governments on both sides of the Detroit River. It is a big win-win for all of us. I'm a strong believer that our mutual friendship is important to the world, although I will be rooting for the US women tonight in hockey. Hockey is still hockey. So yes, some debunking of some lies from the U.S. U.S. side of the border. Now, on the Canadian side of the border, there also has been some debunking of those facts because Dimitri Soudas, who once was the parliamentary secretary to Prime Minister Stephen Harper, also had a few things to say about this. And he was well placed to know because I believed he actually had a key role to play on this file. On here, whoops, and I'm going to bring it up here. Oh boy, I'm just seeing his tweet from 11 minutes ago. Has to do with how one of the CPC influencers might have had some things to say about the incidents in Tumbler Ridge, and if this would not make the party look good, but we'll get back to that if there's time. With regard to the bridge, Dimitri Soudas said, I worked on this file. From one former spokesperson to another with affection and a red pen. Fact check time. Canada does not control what crosses the bridge. Customs and border enforcement are exercised by each country on its own side, like every other border crossing on Earth. This is not a novelty, it is the border. Canada does not own the land on both sides. Canada owns the Canadian side. The state of Michigan owns the US side. That is literally the definition of a border. The bridge was built with American labor, thousands of American workers, billions added to Michigan's GDP. American steel was used. This is not a hypothetical. It is documented repeatedly. Ownership. There is no single owner of the bridge in the way this is being framed. Each country owns and controls its side. Again, border. That was the deal. Signed, ratified, applauded. Economic benefits. The US already gets them. Jobs, GDP, trade flow, regional growth. That is what a functioning border crossing does. And just for the record, the president himself praised the project in 2017 and called for its expeditious completion on paper in a joint statement with Canada. You can change your mind. You can change your politics. You can even change your story. But you cannot polish a turd. Wow. So yeah, people standing up and correcting, pushing back against the narrative. Now, it would appear that the family in question, who owns the current Ambassador Bridge, had a little bit of a role to play when it comes to Trump deciding that he is going to lose his mind on this. According to CTV News, the billionaire owner of the Ambassador Bridge met Trump official Howard Nutlick, Commerce Secretary, who brought his family and children to Epstein Island for a meeting that was allegedly never to have taken place because, according to Nutlick, he had no association of any kind with Epstein after like 2005 or something. He is involved again. After a direct call between Prime Minister Mark Carney and US President Donald Trump on Tuesday, attention turned to what comes next for the Gordie Howe International Bridge. Carney said he told Trump that Canada paid over $4 billion for the bridge's construction and that ownership is shared with the state of Michigan, calling the project a great example of cooperation between the two countries. Meanwhile, the New York Times reported that a Detroit-based billionaire who owns the Ambassador Bridge met with a White House official just hours before Trump posted his threat to halt the opening of the Gordie Howe Bridge. Also, Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer is pushing back against the president's social media threats, saying the Gordie Howe Bridge was made with, quote, union labor on both sides of the Canada-US border. Matthew Maroon, whose family has operated the Ambassador Bridge connecting Windsor, Ontario and Detroit, Michigan for decades, met with U.S. Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick just hours before Trump threatened to block the opening of the nearby Gordie Howe International Bridge, the New York Times reported on Tuesday. Sources told the Times that Lutnick spoke with Trump by phone about the matter. After the meeting with Maroon, the president would post his threats about not allowing the bridge to open just before 6 p.m. Eastern Time on Monday. The Maroon family has made numerous efforts to stop the construction of another bridge between Windsor and Detroit. Matthew's father, Manuel Mati Maroon, who died in 2020, publicly appealed to Trump during his first term in 2018 to revoke a presidential permit that former U.S. President Barack Obama granted to greenlight construction of the Gordie Howe Bridge. And clearly at the time, Trump, who wanted expeditious completion, did not meet Mr. Maroon's request. But now that the bridge is built, oh yeah, we're just going to come and take half of it. It's like Greenland all over again. It's like, you already own half. Greenland, you already have access through treaties and agreements. You could just, all you have to do is inform them that you want to build another base. There you go. Done. Publicly demanding to be given that which you already own is the very definition of action for action's sake, which is one of the 14 characteristics of fascism, according to philosopher Umberto Eco. By the way, we frequently refer to them on the show. So yeah, Nutlick got a phone call from a rich person who will be affected negatively, yes, because of that. And then he sprung into action. So that's what this is all about. Some person who doesn't want competition. Some very rich person who doesn't want competition, who's been trying for a long time to scuttle this project, just turns around and says, hey, Nutlick, I have your ear. You have the ear of the president. We're not happy with this. If you want those donations to the president's legal defense fund, those donations to the president's whatever, campaign, ballroom, whatever, to keep coming, maybe you would like to bring this to his attention. And Nutlick, like the good puppy dog he is, places that call, and then boom, we get a truth on which Trump is going to have to tackle himself, because Michigan officials have repeatedly stated already that, yeah, we don't care what Trump says, that bridge is going to open anyway. Wow. Just, wow. Literally, we are we are at the mercy of phone calls now. I personally don't like this. Stop it. And then we get a tweet like this. It's absolutely incredible. According to Tyler Pager and Martina Stevis-Gridneff of the New York Times, the billionaire owner of a bridge connecting Michigan with Canada met Howard Lutnick, the U.S. Secretary of Commerce, on Monday, hours before President Trump lambasted a competing span in the latest flashpoint in the deteriorating relationship between the United States and Canada. Matthew Maroon is a Detroit-based... Whoops. Sorry. I'm going to have to... a pop-up came up and blocked exactly where I was reading. Sorry, kids and cubs. Let me just move my monitor around there and the screen, and there we go. Hopefully, there we go. Now we're around the pop-up. Matthew Maroon is a Detroit-based trucking magnate whose family has operated the Ambassador Bridge between Detroit and Windsor, Ontario for decades. He met on Monday with Mr. Lutnick in Washington, according to two officials briefed on the meeting, who requested anonymity to discuss a private conversation. After that meeting, Mr. Lutnick spoke with Mr. Trump by phone about the matter, the officials said. Shortly afterward, Mr. Trump threatened to block the planned opening of a new bridge between Detroit and Windsor, which would take away toll revenue from Mr. Maroon's crossing if Canadian officials did not address a long list of grievances. The Maroon family has for decades mounted legal challenges to block or delay the competing project, known as the Gordie Howe International Bridge. One of the challenges reached the Canadian Supreme Court, while the family has also lobbied extensively against it. A spokesman for the Commerce Department declined to comment on the meeting with Mr. Lutnick. A representative from Mr. Maroon's company did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Gee, I wonder why. The new bridge was fully paid for by Canada, but is owned in part by Michigan and is expected to ease congestion in the busiest trade corridor between the United States and Canada. Mr. Trump's latest salvo comes at a particularly fraught moment in the relationship between the two allies as top trading partners. Since Mr. Trump's election, he has menaced Canada, questioning its sovereignty and leveling tariffs on some of its key industries, including steel, lumber, and automobiles. The two countries, along with Mexico, are expected to review their comprehensive long-standing free trade agreement this year. Those talks are expected to be strained given Mr. Trump's use of tariffs. Quote, the fact that Canada will control what crosses the Gordie Howe Bridge and owns the land on both sides is unacceptable to the president, Carolyn Levitt, the White House press secretary, will be polite, told reporters on Tuesday. It's also unacceptable that more of this bridge isn't being built with more American-made materials. She added, this is just another example of President Trump putting America's interest first by blocking your country's ability to get products out of your country and into another one where they can be sold for profit. That's putting America's interest first. Okay, boo-boo kitty, if you say so. In a rambling social media post on Monday evening, Mr. Trump threatened to stop the bridge from its scheduled opening later this year, saying that he wants to punish Canada for exploiting the United States and for reviving its trade relationship with China, among other purported transgressions. It was not immediately clear how Mr. Trump would block the opening of the Gordie Howe Bridge, which remains under construction. The new crossing, which cost $4.7 billion, was paid for by Canada in this I'm sorry about that, Kiss and Cubs. We lost a connection for a little bit there. I'll go back a little bit. If I repeat myself, I'm sorry here. The new crossing, which cost $4.7 billion, was paid for by Canada and is to be operated jointly by Canada and Michigan under a public-private arrangement. The Maroon family had previously called on Mr. Trump to halt the construction of the bridge, which once opened would compete with the Ambassador Bridge for the more than $300 million a day in cross-border traffic. Cross-border trade, I should say. Mr. Trump on Monday suggested in a post that the United States might seek to acquire at least one half of the new bridge and take a cut of the tolls. In his first term, Mr. Trump had promoted the Gordie Howe Bridge in a joint statement with Canadian officials as a symbol of the country's, quote, deep ties and as a vital economic link between our two countries. Prime Minister Mark Carney of Canada said he had a call with Mr. Trump on Tuesday and explained that Canada paid for the bridge, though it will share ownership with Michigan. Quote, this is a great example of cooperation between our two countries, Mr. Carney told reporters. I look forward to it opening. Canada is Michigan's largest export market, and Democrats assailed Mr. Trump's bombast. Quote, the billionaires scored again, Representative Debbie Dingell, Democrat of Michigan, said in an interview. Donald Trump won Michigan. Why is he going to screw the working people who voted for him? Mr. Trump and Mr. Carney had enjoyed a stable, amicable relationship despite the lack of progress in the two nations' trade relationship, but that changed after Mr. Carney delivered a high-profile speech last month at the World Economic Forum in Davos that irked Mr. Trump. Or, as we say, that hurt his fifis. Mr. Carney described the end of the US-led world order as an irreversible rupture and called on middle powers such as Canada to band together in order to defend their interests and survive the turmoil that has come with Mr. Trump's second term. Despite not once mentioning Mr. Trump or the United States by name, the speech was widely interpreted as a rebuke of the US president. Mr. Trump reacted sharply. And then that's the quote about the freebies, of course. Again. So, yeah, that's what happened. Since they are talking about this speech, Kits and Cubs, that speech is really reverberating around the world. It was said at the time that this would be probably one of the more important speeches and that a lot of people would be referring to it in the days, months, maybe years to come. Maybe that even historically it might end up being something rather big. It seems that people are picking up on those themes. Yesterday, French President Emmanuel Macron, I think it was yesterday, delivered an address that had themes that very much echoed that which Mr. Carney said at the WEF. And it's kind of interesting to see those themes get picked up again. Macron accused Trump of an anti-European push for EU dismemberment. So yeah, he said that he's noticed some changes. He said that there's the end of Russia as a permanent provider of low-cost energy, and of China as a main export market to make them our main competitor. The U.S. imposing tariffs on our economy is a coercion mechanism. This is a game changer. Why this is not just a transition, and none of these new factors will change in the short run. This is not a temporary shock. This is clearly a structural turning point. We must make Europe an independent power, a single market, but also an economic power. So yeah, Macron picking up what Mark Carney has been saying. In addition, I'm not saying that there's some Carney mania going on here, but it's resonating. It is resonating. According to Politico, this is Eli Stokols, President Donald Trump's hasty climb down after weeks of threats about seizing Greenland from Denmark's control has not done much to improve the fraying transatlantic relationship with Europe. In fact, the bad feelings across Europe have only deepened as the president and other administration officials have, in ways large and small, continued to poke politicians and entire populations in the proverbial eye. The provocations come as European officials prepare for the Munich Security Conference this weekend, where key topics will include the transatlantic relationship and whether the continent can stand on its own without Washington's help. A high-level European official similarly described a change in mindset that is taking place. Quote, "We're forced to adopt a violent approach in our relationship with the United States administration," the official told Politico, explaining that Europeans are realizing that Americans increasingly seem to view Europe less like allies than rivals. It has completely changed from the time when there was cooperation between us. Now we're in a power struggle. Amid the row over Greenland last month, Trump casually dismissed the sacrifice of NATO troops who fought beside U.S. forces in Afghanistan, leaving NATO allies, quote, disgusted. Subsequently, the U.S. Embassy in Denmark removed 44 small Danish flags that commemorated the Danes who died in Afghanistan, placed in response to Trump's comments, fueling more anti-American demonstrations in Copenhagen. News that American federal immigration agents would be on the ground providing security during the Winter Olympics in Milan sparked widespread fury throughout Italy, and boos serenaded Vice President J.D. Vance as he attended the opening ceremonies and events over the weekends. They booed anyway, despite being told by the IOC not to. Good job. Quote, "The message, the lack of respect for Europe that has been sent," said a second high-level European official who, like others interviewed for this report, was granted anonymity to speak candidly about a sensitive diplomatic situation. Quote, "But they just can't seem to help themselves from sending it again and again." Yeah. Canada feels your pain. And last week, the U.S. ambassador to Poland turned publicly hostile towards a Polish lawmaker who wouldn't sign a petition backing Trump's nomination for the Nobel Peace Prize, drawing a rebuke from Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk. Quote, "Allies should respect each other, not lecture each other," Tusk wrote in a post on X directed at the U.S. ambassador Tom Rhodes. Oh, so Polish has its own ambassador douche face. Hoekstra is clearly not a blip, not a bug, but a feature. Inside the White House, aides have largely moved from the president's Greenland fixation that took up so much oxygen in January. Asked about the supposed framework agreement Trump claimed to have secured Davos to boost America's military presence in Greenland, a senior White House official said only that they hadn't heard any updates on it. And there is scant evidence of concern about Europeans' hurt feelings or spiking anti-American sentiment across Western Europe. Protests in Denmark, the official said, were a non-issue. It's not even on our minds anymore. But for Europe, Trump disrespect towards Greenland and Denmark threats to violate the sovereignty of a NATO ally amounted to a near rupture of the transatlantic relationship. The additional nicks and cuts from these diplomatic dust-ups over the last couple of weeks have only hardened the resolve to permanently rethink decades of close alignment with Washington. Quote, Europeans are going through the fifth stage of grief, said one French diplomat who asserted that acceptance has finally set in. We now understand the U.S. administration is going to be difficult for the foreseeable future. We don't want to say we told you so, but we told you so. The president's oft-repeated declarations that I love Europe, gee, where did we hear that before? Does that sound familiar? Jamil, tell Canada I love them. I love Europe. Uh-huh. Sure, Jan. Sure. The president's oft-repeated declarations that I love Europe have rung hollow, coming from an administration that has made its disdain for the continent so explicit in speeches both from Trump and Vance and official national security strategy, and by imposing tough new policies on trade and defense. In terms of the latest indignities, Trump's belittling of the sacrifices made by NATO troops in Afghanistan, quote, angered a different crowd from those upset about deploying ICE in Italy during the Olympics, said a third high-level European official. European leaders are more and more accepting that de-risking from the United States is unavoidable. There is, however, more shared agony than agreement among European leaders about how to de-risk, to diversify and deepen economic security and diplomatic relations with other countries to reduce their vulnerability to future unilateral American actions. Literally, it's the Carney strategy here. From a global hegemon that they've relied on so heavily for 80 years. The upcoming Munich Security Conference, the annual confab of transatlantic diplomatic and defense leaders, will provide an initial glimpse at where Europeans stand. Heads of state are quickly shifting gears, hoping to lessen their reliance on the U.S. in order to limit their vulnerability against the actions of an unpredictable and occasionally hostile president, or, as we've been saying on the show, to reduce their exposure to a single point of failure. Threatened with higher tariffs, European leaders are looking to do more business with countries in South America and China. They're rethinking agreements with American defense contractors and openly discussing the viability of NATO given America's suddenly questionable commitment to Europe's defense. Quote, there's irreparable harm done, said Ian Bremmer, the president of the Eurasia Group, a global risk assessment firm who is frequently in contact with heads of states on multiple continents. It doesn't mean that the U.S. can no longer be allies of these countries on the back of what happens in 2028, but the relationships will be different. The global order will be different. The U.S. will have lost a very significant amount of capital, of long-term capital, with a lot of countries. Anti-American sentiment among Europeans has spiked in recent weeks, according to YouGov surveys tracking Europeans' opinion of the U.S. Large majorities of people in Denmark, France, Germany, Italy, Spain, and Great Britain now have an unfavorable view of the U.S. More than 60% of the public in all 6 countries now see the U.S. in a negative light, including 72% of Germans, 84% of Danes, a marked uptick in just the last 3 months. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen has said her approval ratings improve over her defiant response to Trump's Greenland threats. I should repeat that, actually. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen has seen her approval ratings improve over her defiant response to Trump's Greenland threats. But a number of European leaders, even as they take steps to reduce their dependence on the U.S., still intend to maintain a solid relationship with Trump and hope to work with the administration on a host of issues, including the ongoing efforts to end the war in Ukraine, or at least help the Ukrainians defend themselves. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, who has been among the European leaders more critical of Trump, is planning a trip to Washington next month. Quote, there are members of the press asking every day why they're not being tougher on Trump, said a fourth European official. That speaks to the swell of opposition to the U.S., and there's a political upside for politicians who can speak to it. But the reality is also that we are all still need that relationship, at least in the short term. So I think you'll see most heads of state try to keep working with this White House. That described, among others, the strategy of Finland's President Alex Stubb, who acknowledged in a speech to Parliament last week that the U.S. is changing in its approach to a longtime allies and its broader foreign policy while still labeling America as, quote, an important ally. Stubb, who has built and maintained a close personal relationship with Trump, was nevertheless blunt in his assertion that the current administration's foreign policy, quote, is underpinned by an ideology that conflicts with our own values. So, The world is picking up a little bit what Trump is stating, what Mark Carney has been stating. Sometimes it's a risk to be the first to stick your neck out. In this case, it seems we actually do have friends. We stuck our neck out with the counter tariffs. Nobody followed us. But on this one, it seems people are indeed following us. According to Murray Brewster from CBC News, talking about the Munich Security Conference here, almost every foreign diplomat you run across lately simply gushes about Prime Minister Mark Carney's Davos speech and how his remarks about middle powers banding together went viral in Europe. As much as the speech represented a wake-up call for Canada and its allies, a new report that sets up the annual Munich Security Conference extends and sharpens Carney's argument and delivers a series of stark warnings. One of them is fairly straightforward, if somewhat uncomfortable, for Canadians. Where allies are concerned, it's not enough to just show up. You got to bring something useful. The report, which serves as the foundation of discussion at the world's largest security conference, suggests going forward alliances must require. Let me try that sentence again, tripping over my tongue. The report, which serves as the foundation of discussions at the world's largest security conference, suggests going forward alliances require sustained investment, credibility, and trust, commodities that must be actively maintained, not assumed. The conference will be held in the Bavarian city later this week, and the report by researchers Tobias Bunde and Sophie Eisentraut argues that countries unwilling or unable to adapt to a more coercive global environment risk being run over in an international system increasingly shaped by power rather than consensus. Quote, international rules are only as strong as the democratic states willing to defend them, the report says. For Canada, that assessment cuts close to the bone. Ottawa has spent decades operating on the assumption that the rules-based order would endure, that institutions would hold, alliances would remain reliable, and norms would restrain excess. The Munich Conference report suggests those assumptions no longer apply, and wonders whether we're witnessing the end of an era rather than the retrenchment of the United States. Quote, the new leadership of the United States, the country that has long acted as the guardian of the post-1945 international order, has concluded that upholding that is no longer in America's interest, said Bunde at a briefing prior to the release of the report. More than that, it has begun to actively dismantle it, at least in several key dimensions. So when bulldozers torn down the east wing of the White House in October, we felt this offered a fitting metaphor for the moment we are living in. Last year's gathering in Munich was marked by a speech from U.S. President J.D. Vance, who delivered a scalding attack on European democracies. He said the greatest threat to the continent was not from Russia and China, but from within. Eisentraut said, however, that sentiment is not restricted to Washington. Quote, we are currently seeing the rise of political actors who do not promise reform or repair, but who are very explicit about wanting to tear down existing institutions, and we call them the demolition men, Eisentraut said at the same briefing. What drives many of them is the frustration with the liberal trajectories their societies have followed, and which they argue put their countries at risk of civilizational decline. And with the guardrails weakening, the report suggests credibility now matters as much as principle, and commitment must be demonstrated, not simply declared. The report describes a world in which economic interdependence no longer guarantees stability, trade is routinely weaponized, and security guarantees are increasingly conditional. In that environment, middle powers without hard leverage face a shrinking margin for influence. Canada is one of them, something Carney acknowledged at the World Economic Forum. Quote, for decades, countries like Canada prospered under what we called the rules-based international order. This bargain no longer works, the Prime Minister said. Stop invoking the rules-based international order as though it still functions as advertised. Call it what it is, a system of intensifying great power rivalry where the most powerful pursue their interests using economic integration as coercion. The Munich report sharpens that point, saying without material capability and sustained investment, even well-intentioned countries will find the influence steadily diminished. Quote, effectively, defending institutions, rules, and norms requires actual material power, not just rhetoric, the report said. Eisentraut said the gap between rhetoric and reality is feeding disillusionment in Western democracies. Quote, in short, if institutions are seen as failing, if meaningful reforms are not seen as credible, then why hold back those who want to demolish it all, Eisentraut said. And that's why in the report we argued that we have ended up in a period of wrecking ball politics where those who employ the wrecking balls, the bulldozers, the chainsaws are often cautiously admired or even openly celebrated. Trust in the United States as a reliable long-term partner is waning, especially in Canada, a survey for the Security Conference found. 2/3 of respondents in Germany and absolute majorities in Canada, the United States, and France say that the United States has become a less reliable ally. More strikingly, in Canada, more respondents now view the United States as a threat and as an ally, Bund said. The poll was conducted before U.S. President Donald Trump's latest threats to annex Greenland. Despite pessimistic findings, polling data shows Canadians remain broadly supportive of international engagement. 35% says Canada should do more when other countries pull back. Another 35% favor maintaining current levels of involvement. Only a minority advocate disengagement. In other words, Canadians have not turned inward. But the report is blunt. Engagement now carries a cost. Institutions do not defend themselves. Norms do not force themselves. Alliances do not run on intent. Interestingly, Eisenhower noted that the policy of accommodation that many European allies, even Canada, have adopted in response to the Trump administration has pretty much run its course. Charting where to go from here will be part of the discussion at Munich this week. So in one sense, it is kind of unfortunate that Prime Minister Carney will not be attending now that he's decided to stay home based on events at Tumbler Ridge, because he certainly would have been needed. Maybe he will be working the phones or Zoom calls or stuff like that, in that sense. But yes, he that we know of at the moment, he will not physically be going. But now that other parts of the world seem to have been come to that realization and are picking up the ball and running with it, who knows? Maybe we'll again. My favorite words, my new favorite words are coordinated action. So hopefully this sets the stage for much more of that in the weeks and months to come. All right. Other news, kids and cubs. There seems to be some pushback in the United States to things that Trump has been trying to do. One of the things, one of the elements of pushback actually has to do with the tariffs that he's been imposing. It would seem that, the House Republicans are starting to turn in small numbers on the president. According to Veronica Stracalursi and Allison Main of CNN, Speaker Mike Johnson failed to reinstate a ban on lawmakers' ability to challenge President Donald Trump's tariffs when 3 Republicans crossed party lines to vote with Democrats. The House sank a procedural vote Tuesday night that contained language blocking votes in the chamber that objected to Donald Trump's tariffs through July. The move opens the door for Democrats to move forward with forcing votes to repeal the president's tariffs in a blow to the administration. With razor-thin margins in the House, 3 Republicans, GOP Representatives Thomas Massey, again, who's also pushing back on the Epstein files, Don Bacon, and Kevin Kiley, were enough to sink the vote. Johnson can only afford to lose 1 Republican vote to advance legislation with his current margin. The Senate has passed at least 3 resolutions rebuking Trump's tariffs, but routinely ran into resistance in the House, where members were blocked from forcing votes on the matter. Following the vote, Bacon said in a statement that he doesn't like, quote, putting the important work of the House on pause, but Congress needs to be able to debate on tariffs. The Nebraska congressman went on to say that, quote, tariffs have been a net negative for the economy and are a significant tax that American consumers, manufacturers, and farmers are paying. Article 1 of the Constitution places authority over taxes and tariffs with Congress for a reason, but for too long we have handed that authority to the executive branch. It's time for Congress to reclaim that responsibility. Ooh. 2 P leaders had argued that lawmakers should support the rule to allow the Supreme Court time to weigh in. No, don't do any of that. Let the Supreme Court weigh in first, and then we'll move. Yeah, it seems that some people are not willing to wait for that anymore. Quote, look, this is life with a small majority. I mean, I need unanimity every day, and we didn't get it tonight, he told reporters after the vote. The vast majority of the House Republicans agree wholeheartedly with the president, and we're going to give him the latitude to continue his trade policy. So, and this was after Johnson vowing the day before that, no, we're going ahead maintaining the ban. So apparently they put something out in place that said that even if the Senate passes anything in the House, they're not even allowed to debate or discuss whether or not they're going to have a vote on repealing Trump's tariffs until sometime in July. That restriction is now no longer in place. So we'll see what becomes of that. Also, kids and cubs, as you know, Trump was trying to create some legal trouble for 6 Democrats who made a video reminding people that it was okay, not only okay, but it was their duty to resist illegal orders. And Trump tried to pursue them, charge them criminally for having done so. Well, a federal grand jury, and remember, in the United States, they say that to get an indictment, it's so easy to do, you can indict a ham sandwich if you needed to. But in this case, a federal grand jury on Tuesday declined to indict Democratic lawmakers who posted a video urging service members and intelligence officials to debate any illegal orders from the Trump administration, according to 2 people familiar with the matter. The Justice Department's case focused on a 90-second video clip that featured 6 Democrats, including Senators Elisa Slotkin of Michigan and Mark Kelly of Arizona. The video, which outraged the Trump administration, had warned that threats to our Constitution are coming from right here at home and repeatedly urged the military and intelligence communities to refuse illegal orders. The declaration is a rebuke of the administration's efforts to paint the 6 lawmakers, all of whom served in either the military or intelligence services, as dangerously undermining the president's authority as commander-in-chief. It was not immediately clear which of the lawmakers was facing indictments. CNN has asked the Justice Department for comment. And of the 6 here, the other 4 are Representative Jason Crow of Colorado, Mark Kelly, of course, we mentioned, is from Arizona, Elisa Slotkin of Michigan, and as well Representatives Chris DeLuzio and Chrissy Houlihan of Pennsylvania, and Maggie Goodlander of New Hampshire. So those are the 6 that Trump was trying to tie up in the courts and have deemed as criminals for simply saying that which is routine and true. If you excuse me, kids and cubs, I have a little something in my throat. I have to cough. There we go. Thank you for that. So yeah. So some resistance there. Of course, it's a grand jury. So that is the people who have decided, no, we're not going to let you play that. Back home in Canada, there are some people who would like certain reforms to the way we do business here that might prove beneficial. Yesterday, we talked about Bruce Fanjoy trying, I guess, maybe in an attempt to finish Pierre Poilievre off, supporting a petition that would call for, I guess, the House to ensure that all party leaders obtain STI level security clearance, the type that allows you to get into a SCIF. As I keep on mentioning on the show, the type of security clearance that Pierre Poilievre has never, ever possessed, despite the fact that his army of online minions keep on asserting he had it when he was cabinet minister. He has it. He doesn't need it. No, he has never had it, and for which he will not submit. So that's one change that people are looking for. We also have that petition, as we mentioned, to change media ownership laws. That's a change people are looking for and would like to see happen. But another change that people are hoping for here, and this is Calgary Confederation MP Corey Hogan calling for some changes to how question period operates, which could be of a good benefit here to us, according to David Baxter of the Canadian Press. A Liberal MP says he wants to see question period in the House of Commons offer longer, more detailed answers and fewer social media-friendly clips. Alberta MP Corey Hogan said Wednesday he plans to push for question period reform when MPs debate the rules of the House of Commons known as standing orders on Friday. Quote, I think having 35-second questions and 35-second answers is of low nutritional value, and Canadians deserve to get real answers about the issues of the world, Hogan said before the weekly Liberal caucus meeting. Question period is the daily question and answer session where opposition MPs grill government ministers in Parliament. It's often the most visible part of the parliamentary process. It operates under strict timelines, and the House Speaker closely watches the clock whenever a member of Parliament is speaking. The Speaker is often seen giving MPs a hand signal to indicate their allotted speaking time is coming to a close. The Speaker can and does move on to the next MP in the question period order if a member takes too long to ask or respond to a question. But Hogan said the brief answers permitted by question period don't offer much substance, and the current format does a far better job of generating sound bites for social media than of holding the government to account. Quote, for example, in the United Kingdom, a question has to be on the order paper, he said. Not suggesting that. I like the spontaneity of question period, but it does mean you come having a real, thoughtful, prepared answer that's going forward on the specific issue that you're going to be asked for. But you just can't get into the meat of it in 35 seconds. It's as simple as that. Hogan didn't suggest a firm time limit on answers. He said they could run upward of 2 to 3 minutes back in the 1990s. He said the response length should depend on the question, but the Speaker should still be able to cut off a minister who is taking too long to reply. Question period has a 45-minute time limit, and opportunities to ask questions are divided among the opposition parties based on how many seats they have. BC Conservative MP Dan Alba said Wednesday that if the government is given more time to respond, it would take away from the time allotted to opposition parties. Well, then maybe you should be using your time wisely, Mr. Albus, because since we are watching a question period, especially since you guys have been the opposition, you basically use question period to ask the same question in different formats 22 different times. So I'm not sure why you would like to have more time, given that you're not diversifying the questions that you're asking. Yet another way that conservatives are opposed to diversity. Whoa! Many constituents tell me on a regular basis that they like seeing that their member of parliament are getting up and asking questions, Albus said outside the Conservative caucus meeting. Yeah, I'm sure they like that you're asking questions. I'm pretty sure that they're not enjoying the fact that all of you ask the same damn question. Just saying. Sometimes these are questions that have to do directly with their constituencies that may not be a burning issue for Mr. Hogan, but are for that individual riding. Sure, you have a long history of doing that. Interim NDP leader Don Davies, whose party only gets to ask 7 questions a week, said the quality of question period doesn't matter for the government itself to address. Quote, I don't know if we need longer answers, but we certainly need better answers, Davies said. That's so weak. No concrete change will come from Friday's debate. Since any change to House of Commons procedure would need to go through relevant committee. Hogan said he is speaking with colleagues on the House Procedures and Affairs Committee about getting question period reform on the agenda. Committee Chair Chris Biddle, an Ontario Liberal MP, said Wednesday he's happy to discuss any matters MPs want to bring forward. On that matter, Aaron Weary from CBC provides a little bit of analysis here and asks, question period is broken. Well, asks, if question period is broken, is anyone going to fix it? Question period is broken, Liberal MP Gordon Hogan told the House of Commons last week. In fairness to the current state of question period and those responsible for it, this is hardly a new complaint. One could spend a long time discussing how Parliament's daily airing of grievances came to be the way it is or who has made it so. But just because question period has long been lamented does not mean it isn't worth lamenting anew. Quote, the current format of question period falls short of its goal of providing true accountability, Hogan said. There are shallow questions, shallow answers, a degree of repetition that would make an advertiser blush, and mad applause on both sides as though we were hitting oratory high scores in the 35-second exchanges about procurement. If he could convey one thing in his remarks, Hogan said it was, quote, that it does not need to be this way. That is the eternal promise of political reform, but if question period and other elements of Parliament don't need to be the way they are, change still requires someone to actually do something about it. Hogan was leading debate during what is typically a little notice day on Parliament Hill, the day that is designated near the start of each new Parliament for MPs to discuss possible changes to the standing orders and procedures of the House. In this case, the debate was being held on a Friday, a traditionally half-hearted day in the House that plays out while many MPs have already left Ottawa for the weekend. Hogan had at least generated some attention last week by publicizing his suggested reforms ahead of the official debate. After talking with colleagues on both sides of the House, I do not believe that what I'm going to say is remotely controversial, though we may disagree on how best to resolve it, Hogan said on Friday. And based some of his suggested reforms Have longer exchanges, set up a roster for who's up to speak, stop the repetition, and for experiment. Try different things and see what works. Keep the best and leave the rest. To start, the Liberal MP would like to lengthen the time allowed for each question and response, at least for a couple of sessions of QP each week. Hogan hopes this might allow for substantive exchanges. As others have proposed in years past, Hogan suggests the House could establish a rotation that would have QP focused on certain ministers each day, and he'd like to somehow reduce the repetition that now dominates QP each afternoon. QP has lately devolved into a procession of MPs essentially repeating the same question over and over again, perhaps purely for the sake of generating social media clips. Quote, I'm new to the House, but what I have learned is that while we disagree often and vigorously, we have a chamber full of dedicated, kind, and brilliant people from all walks of life. We just do not act accordingly in the chamber, Hogan told the House last week. Question period, as currently constructed, shows us at our worst, not our best. So let us improve, or at least try to improve. I believe that Canadians deserve better. I believe we can do better. I hope to work with all members in providing them with better. Conservative MP Michael Chong rose after Hogan had finished and noted that much of what Hogan proposed was in line with the motion that Chong once tabled in the House. Quote, Canadians know that something is not quite right with their democratic institutions, Chong said when he presented that motion. They know that something is not the way it should be. That was in 2010. In his own speech Friday, Chong focused on 3 areas of potential reform. First, he said, Speaker should once again have the power to decide who speaks in the House instead of party whips. Second, committees should be made more independent from party leaders and whips. And third, the Prime Minister should not have the power to select key parliamentary officers. I think checks and balances on power and how power is distributed in Parliament are an extremely important topic of debate, Chong said. We have all seen what has happened in other democracies over the last number of years, the weakening of guardrails and the importance of guardrails in restraining executive power. If knit together, Hogan and Chong's proposals could form the basis of an ambitious reform agenda, and the rest of the day's debate covered an array of possible tweaks to the finer points of parliamentary procedure. But it remains to be seen whether anything will come of Friday's discussion. Officially, last week's debate has been referred to the Procedure and House Affairs Committee for consideration, but the committee is not obligated to pursue a study or report back to the House. Quote, the debate is interesting to members who are interested in parliamentary procedure, but only when the Committee on Parliamentary Affairs reviews these suggestions carefully and reports back to the House with recommendations that MPs can support can we change the standing orders instead of just talking about changing the standing orders, Conservative MP Pat Kelly said in concluding his own contribution to the debate. In recent parliaments, MPs have declined to give reform much consideration, and it's arguably been 40 years since MPs last conducted a comprehensive review of how the House of Commons works. An attempt by Justin Trudeau's Liberal government to launch a discussion of reform in 2017 came to nothing. A Liberal MP later proposed a raft of changes in 2019, but only months before the House was dissolved for a new election. Chong's motion in 2010 passed an initial vote in the House, but then went nowhere at committee. The Procedure and House Affairs Committee is currently pursuing a study of foreign interference, but at least one member, Vice Chair Michael Cooper, a Conservative MP, says he'd be interested in reviewing the standing orders. Quote, at present, there are no plans by Procedures and House Affairs to study the standing orders. However, I am interested in seeing that a study can be undertaken, which in my opinion is long overdue, he wrote in an email this week. Without more, a one-day debate on proposed changes to the standing orders in each parliament is inadequate. I am hopeful that a study can be taken up on this in Parliament. If question period is broken, the next question is whether anyone is willing to fix it. So that was Aaron Weary. Opinion on it and take on the proposal and then the ensuing debate that took place on Friday. As well, another bit of a reform that took place here. As you know, in Canada, we have, or I should say, we had, because this is changing, 2 offices in Parliament that were looking at Islamophobia and anti-Semitism. And this is according to Rafi Boudjikanian of CBC and Salma Ibrahim. And it looks like they are going to be dissolved as individual entities and joined together. The federal government plans to get rid of 2 key offices combating religious discrimination, merging them into a single advisory council on rights, equality, and inclusion. The offices of the Special Representative on Combating Islamophobia and the Special Envoy on Preserving Holocaust Remembrance and Combating Anti-Semitism will both be abolished. Quote, it's about folding in those two positions into a new committee on national unity and advisory committee on rights, equity, and inclusion, Identity Minister Mark Miller told journalists on Parliament Hill Wednesday afternoon. He said both offices played important roles in identifying issues that have sown division in the country. Quote, now it's about taking the next step into a national unity committee, he said. This is not about a cost-saving operation, he said. The Toronto Star first reported news of the abolitions. The National Council of Canadian Muslims, the NCCM, issued a statement criticizing the government's shuttering of the Office of the Special Representative on Combating Islamophobia. Quote, the Canadian Muslim community deserves sustained and dedicated leadership, the NCCM said in a statement. It said it will continue the work of fighting Islamophobia and will ensure the new advisory council's work reflects that. The NCCM also said it is concerned by the dissolution of the Office on Combating Anti-Semitism. Meanwhile, the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs, the CIGA, said it will be keeping an eye on the new council. CIGA CEO Noah Shack said in a statement that anti-Semitism and extremism continue, quote, to surge across the country. Shack said his organization expects to see leadership from the federal government in working with other jurisdictions, adding it is, quote, crucial for the council to, quote, achieve meaningful outcomes in combating the unprecedented wave of anti-Semitism and extremism in Canada. B'nai B'rith Canada also issued a caution about the new initiative to government. Quote, the new advisory council must not dilute Canada's efforts to combat anti-Semitism, CEO Simon Wohl wrote in a statement. The National Jewish Advocacy Organization is pushing for a commission of inquiry on anti-Semitism. The NCCM lobbied for the creation of a special representative on combating Islamophobia, especially in the wake of the killings of the Afzal family in London in 2021. Amira El-Gawabi was appointed as the first representative to the office in January 2023. Her tenure started with controversy over an opinion piece she had co-authored in 2019 criticizing the Québec government for its secularism legislation that bans public sector workers in positions of authority from wearing religious symbols at work. Conservatives, the Bloc Québécois, and Quebec's National Assembly have called for her to step down over the years. The Special Envoy for Combating Anti-Semitism's office is currently unstaffed after the previous envoy, Deborah Lyons, stepped down in 2025. 4 months before the end of their term. At the time, she provided no reason for her departure, but said she is leaving, quote, with a heavy heart and deep disappointment, while also pointing to some achievements on improving understanding of anti-Jewish hate. Quote, it was troubling in the last few years to see our lack of patience, lack of tolerance, and inability to reach out across the gulf to one another, she wrote. In its own statement at the time, the Heritage Department said Lyons was stepping down to spend more time with her family and that her replacement would be appointed in due course. That was in July 2025. Due course never came about. In a statement Wednesday, the department said the composition of the advisory council will be announced at a later date. In its own statement, the Bloc lauded the abolition of both posts and the replacement by a council, saying a better approach is needed to fight racism. So we'll see how that pans out, kids and cubs. But yeah. And then, of course, the last little bit of change that we are talking about here is has to do in diplomacy, because Canada has opened a consulate in the capital of Greenland. Very important that we do that. A new Canadian consulate in Greenland's capital of Nuuk officially opened on Friday in front of an Inuit delegation from Canada who brought a stern message for U.S. President Donald Trump. Back off. Those were the words of Susie Ann Kudluk, Vice President of the Qaqortoq Youth Council, representing Inuit between the ages of 15 to 35 in Nunavik, the Inuit region in northern Quebec. Quote, we want to come together in solidarity with Greenland to show our support and to say that land is not for sale, said Kudluk. She was one of more than 60 delegates who traveled from Montreal to Nuuk on an Air Inuit charter organized by the Makivik Corporation, the legal representative of the Inuit in Nunavik, to stand with Greenland in the face of Trump's threats. As Foreign Affairs Minister Anita Anand prepared to raise the Canadian flag in front of the new consulate in Nuuk, she made one thing very clear: Canada stands with Greenland. Quote, the significance of raising this flag today and formally opening the consulate is that we will stand together with the people of Greenland and Denmark on many issues on defense and security and economic resilience and bilateral ties, on issues relating to climate change and also Arctic cooperation. Anand promised Canada would be by Greenland's side, quote, in the long term, promising to strengthen ties to Greenland through, quote, transportation networks, economic bonds, and through other alliances in the defense of security and space. That message of solidarity was echoed by Greenland's Foreign Minister, Vivian Monsfeldt. This consulate will undoubtedly serve as a bridge for strength and cooperation, not only between our two countries, but the Arctic as well, Motsveld said. Together, we look forward to an even closer relationship between our peoples, built on mutual respect, understanding, and shared interests. The Inuit delegation was arranged to ensure there would be a strong Inuit presence in attendance at Friday's flag raise. The Inuit delegation was arranged to ensure that there would be a strong Inuit presence in attendance at Friday's flag raising ceremony for the Consulate General of Canada in Nuuk. We are one people, said Pita Atami, Makivit president. We can work together, but we don't want to be controlled anymore. We've been controlled for too long. Canada is one of the first countries to open a diplomatic mission in Greenland following Trump's threats to have U.S. take over the self-governing Arctic island, which is part of Denmark, a NATO member. Quote, the kind of message that I hope it sends is that Inuit, as a circumpolar people, we are and have always been on these lands, said Elia Lozon, a 26-year-old delegate from Québrc, Quebec. Quote, the fact that globalization has affected us through colonization, through assimilation efforts repeatedly, and we still do everything to connect with each other on a level where we see each other's humanity, we see each other as people of the same culture. That isn't something that you can just erase from us by putting borders on us. Anand officially opened the new diplomatic post alongside Mary Simon, Canada's first Indigenous Governor-General, who is Inuk from Nunavik, Carolyn Bennett, Canada's ambassador to the Kingdom of Denmark, and Virginia Mearns, Canada's new Arctic ambassador. Canadian Coast Guard medium-duty icebreaker ship the Jean Goodwill and its crew were also in Nuuk for the occasion. Quote, this is a positive thing that we're trying to do to show the world Inuit are united and Inuit are very strong and we are forced to be reckoned with, said Adami Delil Alakou, Executive Vice President in the Department of Environment, Wildlife, and Research at Akivik. Greenland's Minister of Business, Mineral Resources, Justice, Energy, and Gender Equality, Naja Nathanielsen, who met with members of the Inuit delegation on Thursday in Nuuk, told CBC News that Greenlanders are feeling very worried, even scared to go to bed, because they don't know what kind of world they're going to wake up to. She called the opening of Canada's consulate in Nuuk well-timed and appreciated. Quote, we feel deeply connected with the Inuit of Canada, Nathanielsen said. For us, this is more than just about collaboration on a more diplomatic level. It's also about kinship. Plans to open a consulate in Greenland date back to December 2024 as part of a commitment made in Canada's Arctic foreign policy, but the official opening is taking place after Trump began threatening to annex Greenland. Quote, it's a good thing that we're finally moving to the consulate, though it is very concerning that it almost seems to take a crisis before we actually get around to doing it, said Rob Hubert, director of the Center for Military Security and Strategic Studies at the University of Calgary. Hubert says he hopes that the official opening demonstrates that Canada is serious about its relationship with Greenland and its nearly 57,000 residents, not that it takes U.S. pressure to act. Mere hours after laying out his rationale for the U.S. owning Greenland in a speech before the World Economic Forum last month, Trump ended up backing down on military and tariff threats against the territory, announcing instead that he had reached a framework for a future deal with NATO involving mineral rights and Arctic defense. But Greenland's Prime Minister Jens Frederik Nielsen has since warned that Trump still wants to control the island and urged people not to become complacent. For Johannes Lampe, Trump's threats would kindle painful family stories of being forcibly relocated from Nutak in northern Labrador by a dog team under the provincial government's resettlement policy. Lampe, who is now the president of Nunatsiavut, the autonomous Inuit region in Labrador, was just 9 months old when the relocation happened in 1956. His message to Greenlandic Inuit, known as Kalalit, we will simply do what we can to ensure your freedom, your sovereignty, and your self-determination and well-being. Greenland is strategically important to Canada because it's on or very close to the flight path or transit for marine assets of key defense threats, in particular from Russia, according to Dave Perry, president of the Canadian Global Affairs Institute. Quote, having more presence there, developing a better relationship with the people that inhabit the island, all of that is important in a wider Canadian and North American defense context, Perry said. Natan Obed, who heads the representational organization for Canada's 80,000 Inuit, said he hopes the move will lead to greater collaboration between Canada and other circumpolar countries, as well as more inclusive approach with Inuit on defense spending, including dual-use infrastructure. Obed, president of the Inuit Tapiriit Kanatami, the national body representing Inuit in Canada, also said the consulate opening symbolizes a show of support for Indigenous self-determination. I mostly am concerned about what this says for all of the allies globally that believe in diplomacy, that believe in Indigenous people's human rights, and also believe in Indigenous people's self-determination, he said. We have been pushing for the consulate to open for a long time. And if I am not mistaken, I believe France also, about the same time, opened its consulate in Nuuk. as well. So it's not just us here. Yeah, some good news there. All right. Of course, kids and cubs, I have a lot more here on the list that I can bring today, but since we are ending, we're getting close to our time. I will say that that is the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you love listening to us because we love making this for you. Remember, sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless. So please tell your peeps and poops all about us. We really appreciate what you do. And on a note, because we aired Monday's show early on Tuesday, and I did not mention on Tuesday, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Kid Saucy. Happy birthday to you. A little belated, but still as heartfelt. And many more. I'm sorry I missed it on Monday, but I did want to highlight it. Kids and Cubs, if you would like to support us, we would definitely appreciate your help. Thank you, Kit Tabby G. Yes, we will indeed enjoy our vacation time. You can support us by going to the True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated YouTube page. And we're going to put that, look, there we go, put the thing up there. Now we have to use the booster seat. There we go. You can go there and click on our buttons, like, share, and subscribe. Smash with them, have a little fun. You know we're not judgmental, at least when it comes to that. So it helps us with the algorithm when you do. So thank you very much for your help. And if you would like to help us financially, we have the Super Chat memberships on our YouTube page. But of course, we have the Beaver Lodge's Emergency Hydration Fund. If you scan that QR code, it will bring you there. And there you can contribute to our Emergency Hydration Fund, where you can do your best to keep your favorite beaver moist. And no, kids and cubs, this is not wine. This is actually hibiscus. Which is very popular here in Puerto Vallarta and rather delicious, actually. So if you can, please make a contribution to keep your favorite beaver moist, because a moist beaver is a happy beaver. Very happy beaver, by the way, particularly when you're in sunny climes and you tend to get dehydrated a little faster. I was having a little trouble at the end there with some dry throat, and so you probably noticed that I was stumbling on some words. So yeah, send reinforcements. Send reinforcements. We need them. If you're doing the Buy Canadian thing, truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com is our email address, and you can send a donation that way. You avoid the CE tech bros in the United States taking a share of your donation, which means you get more beaver bang for your beaver buck, and we get 100% of your donation, which is very, very helpful. So thank you for that, kids and cups, because democracy is something that you do. Petitions, petitions, petitions. Oh boy, you want them? We got them. We have a Bruce Banjoy's petition, House of Commons petition E7148. Please go there to require, make it such that Gabrieliev would be required to get his SCI level security clearance. We have House of Commons petition E7027. Please go to look at that. Again, you can find all of these at www.rcommons.ca. This one closes in 5 days, which asks the health minister to invoke the disallowance clause to block legislation brought in by Alberta and Saskatchewan that puts our transgender cousins, brothers, sisters at risk. And of course, we have House of Commons petition. I'm just scrolling down in my notes here. 6821, rcommons.ca, again, that closes on February 18th, asking Parliament to make it such that Canadian media ownership laws be changed so that media is owned by Canadians for Canadians. Of course, there's the high-speed train consultation. So you could participate in that. And of course, if you are in the province of Quebec, there is a provincial by-election in Chicoutimi on on February 23rd. I'm all mixed up. So there you go. Words of wisdom, kids and cubs. Sleep, very important. Get some if you can. I was a little short of it the last couple of days. I topped up a little bit on it yesterday. But get some rest. It's a tough world out there. So in order to be able to face it, you need to be well rested and have all your wits all of your wits with you. Yeah, kids and cubs. As I mentioned, it's a tough world out there. So please be kind to and gentle with yourself. And now, can I please hear you say, cue the cock on 1, 2, and 3? Oh, kids and cubs. Yes, yes, yes. I hear it. And because you said it so wonderfully, I must oblige.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Québrc Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and The Pepper Master, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music.
And just a quick little note here, kids and cubs, since we're talking about democracy being something that you do, the results of the PC, Progressive Conservative Party of PEI leadership, have come in. Of course, the vote was on the 7th, and Rob Lance was sworn in as the Prime Minister of Prince Edward Island after winning the permanent leadership of the province's Progressive Conservative Party over the weekend. The swearing-in ceremony took place Monday afternoon at Government House in Charlottetown. Lance previously served as Premier and interim PC party leader for about 9 months, following Dennis King's surprise resignation in February 2025. He stepped down from both roles in December so he could run for permanent leadership of the party. Lois Thompson was sworn in as the province's 35th Premier 2 days later, making him the island's 3rd Premier in a single year. In an interview with CBC, Lance said healthcare, affordability, land and energy were 4 issues he heard continually during the campaign, and those will be a focus as he readjusts to the Premier's office. Quote, "It has been 2 months. I need to get in and find out exactly where we are in our budget process and understand what's happening there," he said. So yeah, there you go. Premier for the 2nd time, I guess in a few months. Might be an interesting point of trivia there. And kids and cubs, also, we'll have more probably on this tomorrow because there's more to the article than this. And I believe today is the day that men's hockey gets started at the Olympics. So there'll be lots to cheer for there. Can't remember off the top of my head if Canada is playing today at the Olympics. I'll try to see if I can make a quick check there. Nope. Today it's Italy versus Sweden and Finland versus Slovakia. Team Canada will be coming on soon enough, though, however. So grab your flags and turn on your CBC and get ready to cheer. That's all I have for now. Amour et bisous. Amor et besitos. A todo la familia. To all the family. A toute la famille. There we go. 3 languages. We're trilingual now. And I wish you a most wonderful day, and we will see you again tomorrow.